Hi, welcome to CLAAS Live. We're here in Agritechnica, Hanover, Germany. Mike Lessiter here from Farm Equipment Magazine, and today we've got a special guest here. It's Ty Rankin from Loanstar Equipment in Texas. Tell us a little bit about your business.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Great. Yeah.
We're a 2-unit store, and we just bought the second store, so a new addition here about 3 months ago in Dalhart, Texas. Originally, we were just out of Freona, Texas, a father-son store owned by Clint and Bob Hurst there, and been operating since the 1950s. And I just came on board about 3 years ago, and had been at CLAAS before that for the previous 14 years.
Very good. Tell us about what you're doing here this week. You have a unique trip put together. Tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty extensive customer group with us. A couple of key players, big multi-unit owners with us, touring some factories, and then ultimately ended up obviously here at Hanover.
So, but beyond the show, beyond hitting the big show here, what are some of the other things that you're doing with them and going to see this week, have seen or going to see this week?
Right. Yeah, so we kind of tripped our way through Germany itself and started out at the headquarters there in Harswinkel. Went through the factory there and toured all the lines, not just Jags or combines. So we kind of tried to hit a little of everything, and then ultimately ended up at the Worldwide Parts Warehouse, and then Paderborn, which is a factory that builds smaller pieces and parts, but major systems like transmissions and hydraulic components, track systems, things like that. The real nuts and bolts of the equipment.
Very good. So they're really getting a good sense of what CLAAS is about here in Europe, as well as what they may know back home.
Yeah, absolutely. This is CLAAS is good about this and has done this for years, and it's really about relationship building, but also showing them how big CLAAS really is. They aren't just an assembly line someplace. They build everything from the ground up. Besides the obvious things of tires or engines or hydraulic hoses, but gearboxes and transmissions, and whether it's cabs or cowling, anything like that, they really build it all. And most guys don't really understand the worldwide concept of how big CLAAS is. So this really lets the customer see, that they aren't just buying from some little short line dealer. That this is a global company, and kind of shows what the aspect of that is.
Yes. Yeah, you look at the size of the operation here, and as we've been hearing from their leadership, a $5 billion company, multinational, big market shares here in Europe. It is something to behold, isn't it?
Absolutely. And customers always leave going, I had no idea that they built these tiny little combines that go to maybe India and harvest rice, or third world countries, and clear up to these class 9 and 10 combines. And just it's a good eye opener, and I've never seen one of these trips go in a bad way, because it's just an eye opener for them.
Right. That leads nicely into the next question here. Got the chance to meet with some of your customers, large farmers, custom cutters who have never been on a trip like this before. And not only are they traveling with you and getting to know the CLAAS people, but they're also around some peers and getting lots of time on the bus and then here at the show. Tell us what kind of perspective a farmer can get by kind of stepping away and spending a week on a trip like this.
You bet. Yeah, besides sometimes some of us just need to take a step back, because some of the best interaction is in between that farmer and that custom operator, or vice versa, and the CLAAS has always liked putting some existing owners on with some prospects, and an existing owner is your best salesman for that prospect, and so they would rather hear those true stories and tribulations from somebody like that than some of us. And if we need to interact, or there's questions, that's what we're there for. But that interaction is huge. But then getting to come to a show like this, then they really understand what the worldwide ag situation is, and the other things that quite frankly, they've never even seen in the U.S. because there's things out here in some of these buildings that they've never even seen, let alone maybe in a magazine, but not in person. And it gives them a pretty good perspective of maybe how some of these other pieces of equipment can fit their operation, and maybe there's some expansions there from CLAAS products, not just outside sources. Obviously, we'd like to sell them more CLAAS products, but as CLAAS's product line continues to grow, of course, we'd like to fill those spots in their farm with more CLAAS products.
Very good. Changing questions here a bit, you're a longtime CLAAS employee and now working on the dealer side, helping farmers from another perspective. What knowledge or understanding might you have gained by moving on to the dealer side as you are now?
Right. It's been an interesting transition, to say the least, but for the most part, it's a bonus to know how the corporate side likes to do things, whether we're talking about annual orders or when they like to book retails, or just how they like to support equipment in the field. Now, being on the dealer side, of course, we have our views of how we would like to be supported by that company, by the flagship company, CLAAS, and so it's been helpful. Can't really say anything negative about it. I get to sleep in my own bed a little more often than I used to, and so that's been a nice thing. But it's also nice to still have that relationship with people in the corporate structure to help us when we need it. And CLAAS has always been good about that anyway. They're such a hands-on company for a global company the size they are. They're still a mom-and-pop company, and they're a boots-on-the-ground kind of a company, and that goes a long ways because so many of these big publicly traded companies aren't, that just answer to a board of directors.
Yeah, I often heard it said that a good manufacturer and a good dealer will have been well served to have done both roles at some point because the world is so different.
That's exactly right, and that's kind of how I look at my role, where I've been on both sides of the fence. Actually, I've been on all three sides of the fence, if there is such a thing, because I used to be a custom harvester myself and ran CLAAS equipment. But so it's a good thing to be able to diversify, no different than a big company trying to diversify in multiple different ways.
Yeah, very good. So there's some big announcements here with CLAAS. Not limited to just the color change, but that's part of it. Tell us what you see about the future for CLAAS moving forward and some of the big news that's come out of here as of late.
Yeah, of course, the color change of the combine for North America is a great deal, just in the simple fact that it ends that confusion of a lot of people that don't really pay attention to who owns who and what piece of equipment is what. They just look at a cat yellow piece of equipment and think, well, cat must make that. And so to get rid of that confusion is awesome, but it also just helps bring that brand recognition together. And so that's going to go a long ways, just getting that brand loyalty, that brand name, brand recognition out there, because face it, we've got a couple of pretty big competitors out there, and so we need all the product line that we can get, and so that's a big deal. But looking at the new Jag on tracks behind us here, I mean that's an industry first, and CLAAS seems to just when you think they've got to be about out of ideas, they come up with something else.
Very good. It'll be interesting to watch, and I know there's big growth plans ahead after having talking to Eric and Katrina here this week. What are you seeing for the next few years in terms of growth?
I don't think we as dealers really know where all the growth can still come from, just because they kind of do keep always throwing us a few curveballs with extra product lines, whether it's telehandlers or wheel loaders. Of course, you never know what of that will come to North America and what won't. But CLAAS wants to be that major player and doesn't want to be a short line company, and they're on their road to being a major, that's for sure. So I think the outlook is bright, and just sit back and wait for the next announcement.
Yeah, very good. Anything else you'd like to say while we're here on CLAAS Live?
No, just thanks for joining along on the trip. It's kind of cool to have somebody like you in the industry that follows the industry so close and is so embedded, but it's kind of nice for you to see some of the behind the scenes and get to, like you said, talk to some of the customers, and not many other organizations like yourself make that effort to do that. So I'm glad that CLAAS arranged it and you made the time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, and appreciate your time. And he's not done in the interview chair yet, because we're doing another special project here this week as well. So thank you and what you do, and the opportunity's been tremendous. But that's it. We're going to wrap up CLAAS Live. I'm Mike Lessiter, editor and publisher of Farm Equipment here in Hanover, Germany from Agritechnica. Thanks for joining us today.